Minnesota Quilters welcomes you to Home for the Holidays. Hi, Anne-Marie. I hate to bug you here at work, but did you remember that Minnesota Quilters is coming over to your house today to see your quilts?
Well, of course I did. I'm looking forward to it so much. But I have to finish at work, and then I'll be right home.
All right, we'll see you there.
Oh, great. Looking forward to it.
At any time of the year, a visit to Anne-Marie Yonk's house is always a delightful experience for a quilter. This month, she has invited us over to view her holiday quilts that will soon be displayed throughout her home. So here's our first quilt.
This is a Carolina Lily, probably about 1880s, 1860s, somewhere in there. It's not cut down. It's all original. And I bought it out of somebody's trunk. They were selling a bunch of things on the roadside, and this was one of them. And so it came home with me. I gave it a better life than a trunk. This next quilt I bought in Houston a few years ago, and I bought it from Julie Silber. I really don't know much about it, and it's a lovely Christmas quilt, just using the reds and greens. They're just the two fabrics, so one green, one red, and I think that is it. And they did make a nice diagonal pattern, at least they tried to. It does kind of go a little askew every once in a while. Again, original, hand quilted, and it's just got straight cross hatching for the quilting. This quilt I bought as a top, and I had it for a few years. I don't remember where the top came from, but I decided one day that it was in need of hand quilting. So I'm not a fast hand quilter. This took quite a few years for me to finish, but very happy it's done. And I believe I put a wool bat in it, which was really nice to hand quilt. The next quilt, I took a class from Pat Cox. It was the second quilt I ever made, and it's all hand pieced and hand appliqued and hand quilted. And this took me like a lifetime to complete, but I'm very happy it's done. I'm glad I managed to do one of Pat Cox's large quilts. It was quite an endeavor. Some of the piecing was rather difficult, especially for someone making their second quilt. It's something medallion. I wish I could remember the actual name, but I don't, sorry. Is there a label on there?
No, I don't see a label at this end.
Oh, there's a label.
Medallion Sampler,
Well, how about that?
1987, begun.
Long time ago. Now, versus the second quilt I ever made, this is the first antique quilt I ever purchased. My husband Dale and I were at an auction, not sure where, someplace in Minnesota, and he'd never been to an auction before, and we're sitting in the front row, and you know how at an auction there are different people, spotters out in the audience, and they're helping coax the bid. Well, there were two spotters out there, and they were having Dale bid against himself, which was really fun. So all of a sudden, I just went, okay, enough is enough. I put my hand down on his and said, you won that bid 4 bids ago, so stop bidding. So this is a wig rose. It is late 1800s, mid 1800s. All of this green has turned to khaki. There are some stains and some places where it's worn, And it is machine quilted, which I find interesting. I don't display this one anymore just because of its condition, but I love it since it was my very first antique quilt to purchase. This next one I've had for a few years. It is a Paragon kit, and it's a little used. It's not pristine. Some of the embroidery stitches have broken, but all in all, it's in very good shape. It is hand appliqued and hand quilted. It has a lovely rose border, and I did a little research on it, and it's simply called Rose. This next quilt is also an antique. I am not really sure of the date. What would you guess, Laura?
1870s or last quarter.
Last quarter
of the 18th century. No,
19th century.
19th century.
I'm sure this was more of a green than it is now. It probably was quite brilliant at one point. I think it's funny she must have run out of green and went to a turquoise color, but the red is still very brilliant. It is hand quilted. There's quite a bit of quilting in it. Not just sort of straight lines in the border, and probably just a crosshatch in the quilt in the background. And then it's quilted on the pieces. And I'm not sure the pattern name, maybe Goose something.
Goose tracks, turkey tracks.
Turkey tracks. Maybe it's turkey tracks. But I bought this at Orinoco at an antique show. This is one of my prize quilts. It is from the 1930s. It's a Marie Webster. Was probably a kit. It could have been made by the Marie Webster Company because they did do that for people, but I don't know. There isn't a label on it. So Marie Webster, and it's her poppy quilt, and it's probably a prized possession of mine. It hangs in my dining room every Christmas season, every winter season. So last but not least, this is, I believe, like a President's Wreath. And I bought this at another antique show. This was Star of the North in Minneapolis. And there's a few little bits and pieces here that are starting to break in the reds, but it's in excellent shape otherwise. There's just a few little breaks, and very, very tightly quilted. And it seems like it should have had a center, like there should be centers here, but the quilt maker must have opted for enough is enough, and we're putting this together and getting it finished, which I wholeheartedly agree in.
I will just lay this back down.
Okay. These cute little patchwork pillows that are on the bed were made by Tracy Eller, one of our, poor Santa, there we go, Santa fell over. Made by one of our Scrap Bagger Quilt Group members. Tracy Eller had my name for Christmas one year, and she made those pillows for me.
Do you want me to hold this?
Yep. And a little plug for the small quilt auction for Minnesota quilters. Now is the time to start making those. This came, I purchased that from the small quilt auction, and I'm not sure there's a name on it.
No name and no date.
Make sure you put a name and a date on your auction quilts.
Okay.
That is probably a 20, maybe 25 years ago I purchased that one. There's a little Redwork Santa. It was a pattern. I made it for my Redwork Club, which was years ago at Glad Creations. One of my favorite pieces to hang at the holiday time, during holidays, Christmas, is this wonderful piece that Gladys Rashka made for me when I left Glad Creations. And it says, she appliqued, hand quilted it, and it says, "Forget me not." And I think it's very appropriate now that she's passed, that I will never forget her. She was an awesome woman and
so talented.
A great person to learn from, and greatly missed.
And your last one. Do your last little
I could do
table
one
topper?
more.
We'll just disassemble her whole room here.
Yeah. Wait until you see my closets. This was just a little piece I put together for a small group, just reds and greens. Nothing special about it other than I designed it, made it, and taught it to a class.
Looks like a Lady of the Lake.
A Lady of the Lake. I'm not sure I gave it a name.
Sawtooth Serenade, 2017.
And there you have the collection of antique quilts we chose for you for today. So now we'll look at a bed turning of other quilts.
On to the guest room. You should be so lucky to be a guest in this lovely room with your choice of quilts on the bed.
So many choices here. This is sort of an eclectic grouping. I thought I had more new quilts to put on the bed, but so we've got some new quilts, we have some class quilts, some pattern quilts, and some antique quilts. So we'll start with the antique quilts. This I've had for quite a few years. It does not have batting in it. I believe the name is Hearts and Gizzards, which is perfect for Thanksgiving. It's kind of a funny, quirky name, but it almost would remind you of a Hawaiian quilting method with such a large pattern. This whole square is cut and is one piece. All hand appliqued, no batting.
Quilting in the background though.
A little tiny bit, not, I don't really think there's much at all for quilting on this one. This is an interesting little 9-patch on point that's been elongated. I'm not sure what the name is. Nice little shirting here and some shirtings, little prints, all reds and burgundies, lightly quilted with a nice little soft cotton batting. It's been loved quite a bit, but still in decent shape. I bought it from a Minnesota quilter when she had an estate sale. A quilt I always think I'm going to make myself, but never do, a Drunkard's Path. Red and white, doesn't get better than that, with a 1, 2, 3, 4, a quad border. This came from Mark French, back when I bought a lot of quilts from eBay. He was a great person to deal with, and he's still selling on eBay. It's also quilted in, I'll hold it up like this. Yeah. It's also quilted with red thread, which I think is pretty fun.
Looks pretty on the back too.
Mm-hmm. This is just a little top that sort of screams holidays to me. It's got a little boo-boo here and there, but I think it's so lightweight. I'm not sure it's really quiltable.
I don't know
so
what you could do with it really.
It's one of those quilts where you just fold up and or quilt tops you fold up and you use
What I'm
for
seeing now,
display.
though, is that it must have been taken off, that it was tied. Look at
Oh,
all
sure enough. Yep, there are
Look
little
at the
tie
holes.
marks. Yep, I see some right here too.
Yeah.
So it must have had a different life at one point than just a top. That would explain why it is so fragile, because
Yes.
it was probably used quite a bit. And it's all hand pieced.
You can show the back, because it's kind of fun. You don't get a sense of the original quilter's handwork when something's fully done. But you do get to see that in a top.
I collect a few tops, not too many. I think my idea that I'll quilt these someday has come to a realization point where I know I'm wrong. I won't quilt these someday, so I buy very few tops anymore. This is part of Quilts Remembered, my pattern company. I had a thing for the gold and the green and the red, so I went a little crazy, as you can see. It's patterned off an antique quilt that actually Laura gave me the picture of. You probably don't even remember, but you did.
Okay.
This is this little square here is a quarter square triangle unit, and it's 1 inch finished. So it's based on a 1 inch grid. So there are a lot of pieces in this quilt.
Great scrap quilt.
And it was quilted by Paige
Johnson.
Paige Johnson.
Okay. Really pretty.
Now we'll do a couple of little ones. These are also from Quilts Remembered. So we have a little star quilt that at one point we did a schoolhouse, and this is the pattern that I taught during my schoolhouse. There are no Y seams in this quilt. It's called Stars Divided. I did a couple of runners. This is called Dixie Diary. Very easy to make. It comes in the pattern. There's a big quilt also. This one is called Olive's Table Runner. It's one of my favorites because I named it after my grandma Olive. She had this wonderful 1920s, 1910 house, and it had this kitchen with a built-in breakfast nook, kitchen table, and she was always making us gingerbread cookies. So it's kind of my ode to Grandma Olive. And the last table runner, and you can check the name on that one,
is the Arrowhead Square.
So just a little Christmassy holly fabric, very simple. It's made with a 3 rectangle log and quarter square triangles. It looks harder than it is. It's a very simple piece. Also comes with a big quilt. And I think you have the name over there.
Glory.
This is called Glory. That's nice red and white.
It's a good one to leave right up through Valentine's Day.
Actually, I could leave this up all year round because after Valentine's Day comes Memorial Day and Flag Day.
Fourth of July.
Exactly. So lots of uses for that one. And this one is called, I think, Molly's Baskets. Molly was my favorite puppy ever, so she got a quilt named after her. And nice little golds for a bit of a diversion from red and green.
So fall or right into spring.
There you go. This is one that goes with a table runner that I showed you earlier. This is also called Dixie Diary. It's in the same pattern, same basic construction. Trying to remember which magazine this one was in. I think it went into a Japanese magazine. I think I've done 2 Japanese magazines before, and they put this on their cover, which I was quite thrilled about. This is a smaller version of a much larger quilt that's about 90 inches square. And it is called...
Winter, you called it Winter Evergreen. It says it was in Quilt Mania magazine.
Quilt Mania, it was going to go in Quilt Mania.
Oh.
And then they decided the colors didn't come out properly. So they pulled that one and it went into a Japanese magazine instead.
And then this is just the center or 2 or 3 rows of your big medallion quilt.
Mm-hmm. My Medallion Sampler, right?
Yes.
This is about 60 inches and it's great for a lot of walls. If you have wall space you're trying to fill with a quilt, it really fits in that nicely for us. And this is kind of my newest quilt. Like I said, it was kind of an eclectic collection. This is a Figgy Quilt. It was a book. It was done kind of like a block of the month. And
now it's out as a book.
Now it's out as a book, right. And it isn't finished because I don't have the binding on it yet. Just pretend it has a beautiful red edge.
And
the quilting
stunning.
on it is superb. It was quilted by someone whose name I'm not going to share because I hope she doesn't get too busy that I can use her again. It is probably the most beautiful quilting I've ever seen. And
every block is
different.
Design.
Yes. And I think one of the things I like a lot about it is I use both white and beige. Or not beige, cream. So you'll see cream up against white, and I think it just gives it a little sparkle in places, and it gives it a little more depth. So
I know you'd love to see some of these blocks up close, so here are a few. The first one is spinning spools. Here's the traditional schoolhouse block. Here's a square and a square with flying geese in each corner. Here's a beautiful rendition of the traditional Carolina lily. The final block is the Tree of Life. I hope while you were oohing and eyeing over the quilting that you also noticed the precise piecing, which is a hallmark of Anne Marie's quilting.
We can't show you the whole thing because it is quite large, but I'm going to turn it over a bit so you can see some of the quilting, and hopefully you'll be able to see it if the light hits it just right. So you can tell that each block is done differently, and it's heavily quilted.
It's heavy.
It's very heavy. Yes, there are 2 layers of Hobbs wool bat in this quilt. So that concludes the 2 bed turnings. Thank you for watching.
You can book a room anytime.
No, you can't. I think maybe if Laura can take the camera off, she can show you a little closet I have here with antique tops.
Thank you, Anne Marie. It's been a joy to see and touch your beautiful quilts today. Your collection is a true treasure. Our next stop on the tour is the home of Sharon Resvick. We're almost there.
Hello, I'm Sharon Resvick. I live here in Plymouth, Minnesota. When Laura called and asked if I would be part of today's program, I of course said yes immediately, hung up the phone and kind of went into a slight panic thinking, ooh, I'd spent a good share of 2020 downsizing my stuff and especially a lot of my Christmas things. But alas, when I started pulling my Christmas quilts out, my holiday quilts, and setting them around the home, I really found that warmth and comfort that I think we all know that quilts add to a home. So on that note, I'd like you to join me inside.
The quilted wall hanging Sharon was standing by outdoors is hung near her front door so old St. Nick can greet her grandson Nolan when he comes to visit on Christmas Eve. She especially loves all the red buttons representing the holly berries. Hanging in the foyer is her Merry Christmas picture. This is made completely with wool using black thread and a machine buttonhole stitch. You can see that an antique frame beautifully complements this piece. As we enter the living room, there are a few quilts folded and displayed on the couch and chairs, each flanked with homemade holiday pillows. The Santa pillow is hand embroidered, while the other two are made using her embroidery machine. I like the idea of how Sharon lays a quilt on a piece of furniture versus folding it. It tends to make people feel more comfortable when grabbing it up for cuddling under. Here's a full view of holiday trees made from strips. The quilt draped over the chair back is one of her favorites, as it was a block exchange done with her small quilt group. They have met monthly for over 25 years. Because the group has lost 3 of their original members in the last few years, she treasures the quilt all the more for the memories it holds. On to the dining room, where her watercolor wreath hangs. This was made from a kit purchased at the Houston International Quilt Show. Just look at the variety of fabrics and the lacy edges of the wreath. An old single wedding ring quilt adorns the table. Sharon has discovered that square quilts work best for this and prefers the quilt be placed on the diagonal for interest. Quilted table runners add warmth and color to any floral arrangement. Unfortunately, the beauty of this runner is mostly covered up. So while Sharon's not looking, let's take a peek underneath. Christmas pomegranates hangs in the kitchen over a small buffet. It's the perfect touch to bring some Christmas cheer to every meal.
So most of my Christmas quilts, I don't necessarily have hanging up. You saw a couple of them on the walls, but what is left, we love to use as lap quilts. You know, everybody loves to cuddle up with a quilt to watch those Hallmark Christmas movies.
Let's take a closer look at the quilts in Sharon's lap. Christmas letters is a very simple pattern to use your favorite fabric you just can't seem to cut up. The large middle border is covered with antique holiday cards, and the whole piece is backed with red minky. How's this for a true quilted present? This was a free pattern offered by Moda a few years ago. Sharon says she loves wrapping herself in this quilted present. This quilt truly embodies a winter wonderland. Made from her favorite art gallery fabrics, it can remain out long after the holidays with its softer color palette. Taking center stage is her Hallmark Ornament Christmas tree with a quilt-as-you-go diamond log cabin tree skirt beneath it. Without the tree, it is easier to admire the jewel tones of her fabric selections. Heading upstairs, you will pass a red and green star quilt hanging over a quilt rack in the hall. This quilt lends itself to any season and stays up year-round. Her favorite Christmas bed quilt is in her guest room. She loves the touch of pink mixed in with the traditional red and green and the beautiful border print of bells and holly. Just for fun, Sharon includes a vintage tree quilt in a second bedroom. This quilt has a fresh vintage look with its turquoise and mint green trees. Have you been wondering what's in that big box under the tree? You know we quilters love to give our quilts as gifts, so in that big package is this darling truck quilt for her little 3-year-old grandson. He loves big trucks right now, and she couldn't resist making this fun pattern just for him. Thank you, Sharon, for not only sharing your quilts with us, but for inviting us into your home to see how you display and enjoy them. We're on our way south of the river to the home of Patty Von Arx. You will discover that Patty's home is ready for any and every holiday. Let's see what she's up to.
Hello, I'm Patty Von Arx. Welcome to my home as I'm getting ready for the holidays.
It's really nice of you to welcome us into your home today, and I'm excited to see what you have to show us. Should we start right here at the front door?
Yes, absolutely. So here I have my little homage to my wool collection of pieces, many of which were made by my cousin Carol.
Okay.
These are primitive gatherings. They kind of match the quilt over here that's primitive gatherings. And then this is a buttermilk basin.
Just a second, and I'll get a little bit of a longer shot here on this quilt. That embroidery work is really fantastic.
She does fine work.
So you did the piecing and
I did all the piecing and we did the quilting together on that one. And then she did all the embroidery work.
Okay.
And kind of the same with everything over here. I did the embroidery on that because I did it by machine. But the hand embroidery stuff is all pretty much done by her. And then this is by machine, so I did that too.
Okay. Very nice. And as we continue up your entryway, what's this at the top of the stairs?
This is Walking in a Winter Wonderland, and we had seen it done up in red and in blue, and we decided it didn't have to be those colors. So mine is purple, and she did hers in kind of a sage green. And she did all the embroidery blocks on both of them, and I did all the piece blocks and all the quilting on both of them.
Very nice. And I noticed purple seems to be your color.
It definitely is. I think you can celebrate and have your Christmas attire still be purple. And so then after this, she decided I needed to have all these stockings, and she did them to match my quilt. So this was a gift. It's the 12 Days of Christmas, and it was a gift from my cousin and two of my cousins and my aunt. They put it together for me because I like the 12 Days of Christmas.
It'd be nice to celebrate all 12 days, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Like after Christmas, when you actually can relax and celebrate.
That's when you do celebrate them. That's when they
All
come.
right. And then right behind me, you have a little triptych.
I do. And I changed that for the seasons. I have 4 seasons, I believe. So this one comes out at Christmas. Then I have a winter one, and a spring one, and a fall one. So this was a pillow that we did on her gamble machine. So we did the stitching of the letters and the snowflake, and then cut them out. So we put it on the background of the pillow, did the stitching, and that's how that one got to put together.
Beautiful. The white is so striking on the purple.
Yeah.
And your trees?
And these are those trees. It's a Zen chic pattern.
Okay. And I might remind our viewers that you also long arm, so not only are you piecing some of these quilts, but you are quilting them as well.
Correct. I have my own long arm machine, and then my cousin has a Statler, so I do both.
Okay. I'll just get a little closer here on your trees. You can see that quilting. And what kind of batting do you usually use?
Usually a Hobbs 80-20.
Okay.
Sometimes I use a wool, or if I'm doing something real intricate, we'll do a double bat, but I've only done that on a couple different things.
All right, and this quilt on the back of your dining room wall?
So that was a tree exchange that I did with my cousins and various friends. So we each had to do our tree, however many trees there are on there. So
Very nice.
this one was my mother's tree.
Okay.
So she had to do one for everyone. And then mine is the one up in the corner with the glitter,
Okay.
the orange.
And then our little ho-ho over here on your little stand.
And yes, I have a collection of those that I put out for different seasons. And so right now it's set up for Christmas, and then I can show you the next one will be more just winter. And so Then we'll set up
Go from
the
Santa
snow.
to Frosty.
That's right. I keep up the trees and I keep up the snowmen in the front, and then I change out Santa's to just snowmen.
All right. And then as we move over to your porch, it looks like you're transitioning from Thanksgiving
I am.
to Christmas. So tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
So here, well, obviously you can still see my favorite colors, purple with the rugs and the tuffet. And then I have my purple quilts on my ladder. Those are my everyday ones. So I just changed those out at Christmas.
Okay.
And I can show you those in a moment.
And I'm just going to look. This is an Adidas sitar. Is
It
that
is.
correct?
That's correct.
Oh, that's lovely. I love the leaf motif in the quilting design.
Yeah.
And then one of these great pillows.
And this is a pillow, so this was Thanksgiving. So coming up then we'll do Christmas.
Okay.
And then after that, then we go to winter. Let me just hold it there.
Yeah, those of us in Minnesota, we get a lot of use out of our winter quilts, don't we?
We do. We do.
Pretty much takes us right to Easter sometimes.
That's right. That's right. So I can show you some of the quilts that I have that'll go in this room.
Okay.
So this quilt, which I'm sure you recognize, Laura.
I think I do. Yes, tell us.
It was given as a Christmas exchange. We all did a quilt, and Laura got my name, and this is the quilt, and this is what goes where my Adidas one is.
Okay. Oh, so when it's then
Yeah,
it
so
hangs from your quilt hanger.
It hangs up from here.
Okay. Okay.
I really like it because it looks so good on the green wall.
It does.
So
Well, this is something I'm going to say when we go through our through things at my house.
Mhm.
So this is a thimbleberries fabric, a Christmas fabric
Yeah.
from many years ago, and I'm going to mention the fact that a lot of my collection are from the era of Debbie Mum and thimbleberries because
and they still work with
yes, they do, and I still love the fabric.
That's all right. So then this one.
Oh
sits
yes.
on this futon, and I have I've hung it up at times too, so that's why there's a sleeve on the back, but that'll go there.
All right, I get a close-up of those stockings. Those stockings by themselves would be pretty hanging over a mantle, wouldn't
Yes, and they actually, the pattern was you could make them longer and make a bed, end of the bed,
they? Oh, the bed.
or a pillow. And
Okay,
do a long pillow. So.
very nice.
So then these are the quilts that would go on the rack, which are just older ones that I've made that I used to have on a bed, but now they've been relegated to the ladder.
Wow.
So this is
Yes, look at that.
so this was a basic gray pattern,
Okay, I'm moving in.
okay, and it was with this line of fabric. And this is when I discovered I love basic gray.
Okay. Yes, they do.
They started their grunge, and I love grunge, and I love every line they've ever done. Okay.
Go.
So this one's a little bit older, and I coordinated a lot of pieces with it. So it used to be out in the living room, and then I coordinate runners and stuff, and the pillows.
Oh, I can see. So if you find a pattern collection a fabric collection that you like, then you can start with the biggest design and then
Right.
keep going a little smaller, a wall hanging, a table runner,
Yeah. It usually starts with the quilt.
some pillow covers.
So the quilt was made out of the jelly roll, the wall hanging, and the table runner with the charm pack. And then the other two were coordinating panels.
Oh, sure.
And then the last one is just the scraps from the Gudrun little flip and sew pattern.
Well, that makes a real coordinated ensemble for any room you choose to put those in.
It does. And I coordinated it as I had, one year I had all the decorations in the lime green, the red, and the blue.
Oh,
I kind of
sure.
did that for a few years. So this one is a thimbleberries pattern that I use as a table cover, a tablecloth.
Oh, nice. I like how those houses are set at an angle, and each one has a little display in the window.
Yeah.
And Lynette Jensen, she used that fence border on several of her designs, and it's just real effective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I can see how that would look nice on your table.
Yeah. Okay. And this one has a red wagon.
Yes, yes.
And I can't remember the title, if it's Sleigh Ride or Wintertime or
Or snow days or
Snow
something.
Days. That might be it.
Okay. Yeah, she had a pattern booklet that was even a bigger quilt that had gray backgrounds and used some of these designs. I'm going to close up here on the little kids on the sleigh, all bundled up, and then of course the three little guys that are so bundled up that you wonder how they even walk around in the snow. I think that's how snow angels got started. They couldn't stand up. They just fell
right.
over.
They said they fell over.
And what you think are the wings are them trying to struggle to get up.
That's right. And I did it with some Debbie Mum fabric.
So we're kind of talking 80s there, aren't we? Red
Oh,
wagon.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's
Absolutely.
great.
That's one of my first ones. Well, I'll show this one next time. This was my first bed quilt that's Christmas. It has a lot of those same fabrics in it. And just a simple pattern that's got 4 patches and framed ones and solid squares. Just scrappy.
What a library, though, of Christmas fabrics from that era. I'm going to get a little bit of a close-up because I think if people saw this in person, they'd go, yes, I had that fabric. Oh, that's in one of my quilts. Oh, I still think I'm going to make something with that fabric.
Well, and when, I do a lot of quilting with my cousins.
Sure.
And so when we do that, we're all making one. So we all kind of throw our fabrics together and
Right.
we all get a nice variety on all of our quilts then.
Well, that's a
always
real
nice.
benefit of your
Yeah.
cousins and quilting together. Now, how did that come about? I mean, did you all start quilting about the same time, or?
Well, we started, would have been probably in the 90s is when we actually started. And I was living in California, and my cousin was up in Northern California, and I was in Southern California. And her mom would come out and visit her for like a month, 2 months. And I started going up there, and there was a little quilt shop in Santa Rosa, and we took a class. And so we started with that.
Okay. And you've been going strong ever since.
Going strong ever since. So,
There's a pattern everyone's going to recognize, I believe.
yep, I've pretty much done a yellow brick road in every season, many different colorways, with many people.
Well, that is such a classic pattern. And I know a couple of years back, Checker was sending out some statistics, and they said that this is the most popular pattern that's ever been published, and it continues to be a bestseller every year.
Well, it's just such a great beginner pattern, and it always looks good no matter what fabric you pick. I've seen it in so many different colors and so many different types of fabric, and it looks good. I'll take a picture of these.
Well, Patty just opened the secret chest. Now, I've been to her home many times. I didn't know these were hiding down here, but you're going to get to see them. All right.
And this is the one that'll go on after the Christmas one.
Oh. And that's the triptych that we saw the ornaments on
Yeah.
earlier? Okay.
So that one says welcome.
Okay. Very nice.
And then this one is in the fall.
Wow. All those look so nice together, don't they?
Yeah. All right.
The secret drawer.
Here's the secret drawer. It holds all my little things.
Well, you do have to have storage, don't you?
You do. Oh. And sometimes they get put in just anywhere.
Well, a little bit of Halloween, a
And
little
then
bit.
then there's runners and stuff in there.
Oh my! Oh, and then that opens up as
Yeah,
a
that
chest.
opens up
I
top.
see.
Yeah.
Well, Patty's taking us down a long hallway, and here is.
A little
Is it
Nancy
an?
Halverson.
Okay.
And I just thought it was so cute with all those little buttons.
Well, it is.
And again, my cousin did all the embroidery by hand, and then I did all the applique by machine.
Oh, look at that. Very nice.
And then this is another seasonal thing I do every month. So this is December, and this is an Adida Sitar silhouettes. And that
Those are
was
so
probably from 7 years ago now.
I would think so.
So it's the fun of collecting the fabric and, you know.
So it's interesting how you have that framed. So
Yeah.
the frame and the matting stays the same, and then you
Correct.
just need to
I
change
just
out the
just have it
seasonal.
pinned in,
Okay.
and this is has some cork in the back, so I just pinned it with
Oh.
the cork.
Okay.
Here are the seasonal silhouettes that will be taking their monthly turn in the hallway frame.
And not to miss the guest bathroom.
So in here, I have a shower curtain from my Debbie Mum days. So it's
Yes.
a Debbie Mum panel.
Not much privacy with Santa watching, but
No, no. And then another little seasonal thing that I put up is I have these little
the candle
little
mats.
candle
Sure.
mats.
Looking at the year via Patty's candle mats, it would be hard to pick a favorite month.
Very nice.
Okay.
And I'm not going to pass it just because it's not the holiday. Tell us.
Oh, that is a cherry wood pattern, and it was a kit.
Okay.
And,
You had some leftovers?
I had some
Did
leftover
you?
dots, and I stole my cousin's leftover dots, and I made a little floor mat.
Very nice. And then this is your wool work as well.
Yeah. And then the hollyhocks.
Oh. Even in winter, we need to look at some flowers,
That's
don't we?
right. That's right. That one stays out.
Very nice. Love the colors. I'm going to get a close-up on some of your stitching here. And I know you well enough that purple is your color, and I think our viewers are sort of keying into that wow, she likes purple.
She does like purple.
So
this is my quilt, my Christmas quilt that I made this year, and it's a Kate Kate Spain
okay.
pattern.
Oh. You'll have to back up for me to get all of it, I think. Or
Can I go over the couch?
sure, yeah, let's go over the couch. Oh, I know when you showed this at club,
Yeah.
we just oohed and there we go. Just oohed and awed over that. And I'm going to get a close-up on a couple of these blocks. Now, you said that you redesigned some of them or added some.
We had seen an Instagram post by Anka Treasurer, Heather Mulder Peterson,
Oh, okay.
and she
Oh,
had a tree in the middle of hers, and it was one of her patterns, but my cousin happened to do placemats that were this tree,
okay.
and so we just kind of added that one in and then made up a couple of the other ones.
Wow. And then, not to be outdone on the front, what did you do on the back? Because that's just, look at that. That purple ombre.
With the purple ombre. And you know what? It does match this one. I
Uh,
have to put it on. So it was 108-inch wide piece, so it goes from dark to light and then back out to dark.
okay.
Obviously my quilt wasn't that big.
Oh, but to see all of your quilting. That's just, yes, it
It sure
does.
is.
Yes, it does. Well, that would look nice on anybody's bed, that's for sure.
All right.
And then because you love purple and you love to quilt,
So
in Patty's bedroom is another ornament quilt. This one is the result of one of our scrap baggers traditions. Every time a member reaches a decade's birthday, the rest of the group selects a pattern and makes 1 or 2 blocks to surprise the birthday girl during her birthday month. It wasn't hard to choose a color scheme for this one. On the wall is a floral panel that Patty and her cousins used to experiment quilting with their new Statler Stitch program.
in February that one will come down,
Okay.
and then I will put this one up, which is
Oh, yes. Oh, these have been so popular.
Shattered Heart.
Shattered Heart. Okay. Or Exploding Heart. Yes.
Exploding Heart.
Exploding Heart.
Exploding Heart.
Well, I've seen them done in a lot of colors, but the purple is really striking. Oh, it's just, and I don't want to say it wasn't too hard, but it doesn't look like it's real hard. It's just placement and.
It's not placement. It's all it's very easy. You cut all the blocks basically the same, and you make A, B, C, D,
Oh.
E, F. So some of them are quarter square, some of them are half square. It just depends on if they have background piece or
Okay.
all colors. I just tried not to put the same color next to each other. But if they did, I didn't care. So
Oh, it's wonderful.
okay, and that was a buttermilk basin block of the month. So that is December's.
Okay. And then does that crazy quilt frame
Stays up.
stays up? Okay.
And then each month you change the piece in front.
Wow.
It was still helping me.
Okay.
She did a lot of I helped with the cutting and stuff, and she did a lot of the stitching.
Here are the rest of the months for the crazy quilt frame.
And that is a Patch Abilities block of the month that I did.
Yeah, I think she spoke at MQ
She did.
one time and brought her patterns and.
Yeah, she is from Iowa. And where my cousin lives, her mom owns a quilt shop about a mile or so away. And so we signed up for the block of the month, and this is the one where I actually did both of them for us.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
did it all by machine.
Sure. Well, it's doing machine blanket stitch. It looks very nice, and and certainly gets the job done. Here are the Patch Abilities block of the month wall hangings, each with their own seasonal hanger. Well, Patty, I'd like to thank you for inviting us into your home and letting us know that you don't just decorate for one season. You're ready to
Every month.
decorate every month throughout the year. We've really enjoyed seeing your quilts and having you share your ideas and lovely handwork with us. So thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
I'm heading out the door now, and it won't take long to get to my house. Hi, I'm Laura Nagel, and I'm so glad you could make it to my home so that you can see some of my quilts and how I'm going to display them this year. Welcome. Well, as I told you, we'd be going up the stairs and heading to my guest room. And here's where I've assembled some of the quilts that I use during the holiday season. And you may remember when I was at Anne Marie's and she talked about our small quilt group, the Scrap Baggers, and we had our pillow exchange. And this is the one that I received, and Anne-Marie made it. And this is when they were doing the Lucy Boston blocks, and so that was her centerpiece for the pillow. Now I'm transitioning from my fall quilts into my Christmas and then eventually into winter. And this is a blazing star, and it makes a nice transition because it seems to have some fall leaf quilting. We'll hold it up so you can see a little bit of the quilting. A lot of times I like the thread color to match my border fabric, but in this case the design was so lovely that I really like the contrasting thread. I thought I'd start with a few wall quilts. So this first one is made by my mother, and most people's quilting legacy comes from a grandmother to a mother to the daughter. In this case, the daughter, me, I started quilting, and then my mother got involved because she thought, well, this would be fun to do together. And then when my grandmother retired and moved to Colorado, then she started quilting as well. So this was almost finished before my mother was unable to sew anymore. And I think the only thing I had to do was put the binding on. This red and green double wedding ring was a gift from my mother-in-law. And yes, she was a very lovely woman. Worked at JCPenney's in the 90s. So that might give you a clue as to where this quilt was coming from. It was a time when the United States was importing a lot of very poorly made knockoffs, and it became evident very early on that, oh my goodness, if you bought one of those, don't wash it, because either all the colors would run or it would completely fall apart in the wash machine. So I have been very careful with this not to wash it. I only take it out at the holiday season and then hang it over a quilt rack in the family room. But it's very graphic, so I'm very pleased that I have it. And then they quilted a little bell motif, but it's one of those quilting stitches that, if you've heard the expression toe catchers, that's about the size of these stitches. I think everybody got involved with a COVID quilt at some point in 2020, and this was a block of the month or block of the week. It's called the Snowflake Quilt Along from Fat Quarter online shop during the COVID-19 quarantine. And I pieced it, and Paige Johnson of the quilting page quilted it. So I had no idea. It was a little bit of a mystery. They told you to pick out all of these different fabrics, and I actually got to use fabrics that were in my stash, which was good. I didn't have to go out and buy anything, but I did see some others on Instagram where they actually coordinated it so that these blocks were all done in one fabric, and then these were in one fabric, but it's pretty eclectic, and I do like it. I believe that this is an early McKenna Ryan pattern. And you may remember when we have quilt shows in Duluth, when you walk into the entryway, we hang quilts all around the rotunda, which was an idea that I sort of borrowed from my quilt shows that I had at Egan High School, hanging all the quilts around the balcony. And the lady who brought this one in to hang for that weekend of our show, when I was hanging it, I noticed there was a price tag on the back. So when she came to pick it up, I said, well, did you buy this quilt or are you selling this quilt? Oh no, I'm selling it, she said. Well, you can guess who bought it. So, but I like it because, you know, this was before blue and aqua and turquoise became a traditional Christmas color. So it's really nice when this one's hanging. I feel like I can leave it up right through January, and it becomes a winter quilt as well. I do have a few antique quilts, It's never, you don't have to twist my arm to buy a red and green quilt because I always know there's a season where those quilts are going to work well. And this happens to be the Princess Feather. You may have seen it at the time that I did the lecture for Quilting for the Cause. And again, it's all hand appliqued, hand quilted. A little bit of the turkey red here in the center is doing just a little bit of shredding. But I'm really pleased that the green did not turn to that khaki or tan brown that we see sometimes that green migrates to. So I'll hold that up a little bit. So you can see the light shining through it probably. I don't think there was much of a bat to begin with, and over the years there's even less of it left. This is a star wreath, which I think lends itself really well to the holiday season. It has a swag border that I'll show you in just a bit. And then the setting blocks are stuffed, so there is some trapunto work on that as well. And again, hand-pieced, hand-quilted. The green is holding up pretty well, and I don't really see too much deterioration of any of the turkey red. The binding is getting a little worn along the edge, but I can live with that. So here's that swag border. And there really isn't any quilting in the applique pieces, but there is cross hatching in all of the applique blocks, and then again the stuffed feathered wreath in the setting blocks. And maybe you can see it, the definition here. This is one of the newer quilts to my collection. If you've been reading my column, when I came back from my summer vacation, and I mentioned that my granddaughter and I had happened into an antique store, found out the owner was going to be selling the shop. There was a quilt upstairs that I really liked, but I knew it was out of my price range. But when I heard he was going to sell the store, I said, well, are you going to have a sale in the fall? Oh yeah, everything's going to be on sale. I said, well, could you give me a sale price today? He did give me a sale price, and so this quilt came home with me. What I think is fun about it is that so many times you see the red and green motif, either floral or rose wreath or whatever, and they're all exactly the same. But when my friend Glinda in Georgia and I looked at this when I was on my way home, I just purchased it, and every one seems to be a little bit different. So I don't know if she freehanded the drawing or this was how the applique turned out when she did it, but it's very unique. And if you can see at the top, it's a little faded, and I'm sure that's where the window was coming in with the sunlight. But as we get down to the foot of the bed, the colors are a little more vibrant. And each block, there's cross-hatching in the sashing, but each block is quilted with about half-inch lined quilting, but there's no rhyme or reason to, is it all going in one direction? Does it stop here and start there? But it does look like it still is quilted by one person. Because at first I thought, well, maybe this is how it was in the frame and a bunch of different people, quilted whatever they had in front of them. But I think this was just how she quilted it. This is my spinning stars. And of course, what I like, two really favorite things about this quilt would be the presence of the cheddar yellow in the half square triangles, and then the garden maze setting in turkey red. I think the colors just come together really well. And this was a thank you gift to me the year that I was president of MQ, and it comes from the collection of Pat Cox. The quilting is double line quilting, going right through the stars on the block, but there's a little bit of circular a circle in a circle quilting in the garden maze sashing. This is probably, well, it is the newest quilt to my collection, and I have to say I really am not out seeking quilts, but if a quilt finds me, then I really have to, decide, well, do I take it home? Do I not take it home? So I was at an occasional sale just about 2 weeks ago, weekend before Thanksgiving, and it was just packed. There were so many people, and you're kind of looking at everything that's eye level, and then I kind of bumped into something with my foot, and when I looked down, there was this big laundry basket. Here was this red and white triangle quilt. I opened it up. I didn't see any real damage other than, a little bit of an age spot. For as old as this turkey red is, all of the black dye designs on here, the black dots, they are not popping, which typically this age quilt, they would still look like dots, but when you get up close, you'd see that the dye had actually eaten through and you're really looking at holes. So this said, take me home, and I agreed. So there's cross hatching in the setting blocks. There's stitch in the ditch or outline quilting here in the triangles. And then there's a beautiful ribbon border on the sides. Pretty good find. I think you can see the quilting of this one. One of the newest quilts that I've made, and I included, this will be the first Christmas for this quilt. I just finished having it quilted. Paige Johnson quilted it with a Baptist fan, and I think it was my last column where I talked about the satisfaction that I have in keeping my scraps. And so when I was cutting for this quilt, I went through all of my reproduction scraps and cut as many of the squares as I could before I actually got into some yardage or fat quarters to cut those. And I had a nice red border that Paige put in a really nice feather going along the edge, a little bit of piano keys as well. And so I know I'm going to like this, and not I think I'm going to like it. But here I was with this border going, sat there for a while with no binding, because you know how it is. Well, yeah, I know I have the binding for this, but I don't know where it is. And then all of a sudden, there was the quilt, there was the binding. It all got put together. And I think you can see the quilting now. And the feathered border. This is my Goose in the Pond. This was made when we celebrated the Ruby anniversary of Minnesota Quilters. Again, my small group decided that we would each make a red and white quilt, and it hung in the special exhibits. This was a block exchange, so with scrap baggers, this wasn't one of those birthday exchanges like I showed you at Patty's house with Patty's Ornament Quilt. This was each month you could tell the group what block you would like made. And if you had special fabric that you wanted it made in, then you passed that out, or you could just say a color. So I passed out the pattern to everybody, said I wanted red reproduction fabrics, and then these were all of the blocks that I received back, and put them together with this half square triangle border. And just as Sharon Resvick mentioned in the previous presentation, that these memory quilts are really important, especially if some of your founding members are no longer with us anymore. And for me, that's the case too. The people who made these blocks are no longer with us. So it always will have those memories of those people for me. Now, what's even more special, or maybe not more special, but just as special, this was quilted by Karen McTavish. It was, I can't always afford that, but this time I could, and this was the quilt to do it on, and it's just beautiful. Her little feathers, her loops, her spirals in the sashing, and even these tiny little feather motifs in each of these triangles along the side. So this is a real treasure. And then I love the back that's on here. This probably is quintessential Christmas quilt. This is a Thimbleberries pattern, and it is made for a king-size bed, which we do have one. It's just not in this particular room. The blocks are huge. I'm pretty sure it was a block of the month. If you count them up, there's 12 different blocks. And our quilting friend Janet Schutze made this, and at one point when she was downsizing, she said her children, they have enough quilts. And they told her, Mom, you just need to give it away to your friends. So I was standing in line. I wanted to be one of the friends. So this is on our bed at Christmas, and it has a lovely holly, a lovely holly border. And then I think you can see the quilting if we turn it down a little bit, because the quilting is done in green and in beige. So each little area is quilted with something special and indicative. So the roof has shingles and the trees have boughs, and I'm very sure that it was Anne-Marie Yonk of the Quilted Sandwich, when she was running her long arm business, quilted this for Janet. And then when the holidays are over, this is the quilt that stays on the bed in the winter. It's called Smithsonian Pines. It was made in the late 90s. I made it when we were staying up at Bearskin Lodge in Grand Marais. And this was one of the first reproduction lines that was available to us to try to reproduce those antique and vintage quilts that many of us love and want to own, but can't afford the originals. So this was really special to me. Well, I thank you for taking a peek at what's here in my guest room, and I'd like to thank my neighbor, Cindy Folsom, for helping me do the bed turning. And I'll take you downstairs and show you a few wall hangings in just a minute. I'm just about ready to start putting up my wall hangings, and I usually lay them out so I can decide where they're going to go, although pretty much they go back in the same place every year because there's different walls where different sizes fit. So here's the array of Santas. My little guy on the left-hand side here, I call my skinny before Santa. That's before he's had all those cookies and milk, when he's delivering his gifts. The Redwork Santa was a gift from Anne-Marie Yonk. The Christmas baskets was given to me by Jean Humanansky when I was teaching at Country Peddler. The poinsettia was made by one of our members in Scrapbaggers. This fun little Merry Christmas out of flannel was a shop sample. I call this Blue Christmas my ode to Elvis Presley. It'll be a blue Christmas without you. The second grouping, again, several Santas. On the left, I have the 4 Santas from a Red Wagon pattern, which was a shop sample at Glad Creations. The woolwork in the crock pottery with the little gingerbread boy was made by Anne Crayenbrink. The ornaments made by Suzanne Fisher. We were at one of the MQ holiday brunches, and I think hers won an award. And when she came back to the table, I said, "That is such a nice quilt. I really like it." She turned around and handed it to me. Well, Merry Christmas a couple days early. Anne-Marie Yonk made this lovely table runner with the vintage holiday cards. And she also made this table topper with the snowballs and the spools in the new Christmas colors with the aqua and sort of the minty green, red and black. And Old St. Nicholas, again, a sample from Glad Creations. Thank you for joining us for this tour of Home for the Holidays. You might recognize some of these quilts as being part of the bed turning earlier on, and this is how they'll be enjoyed during the holiday season. Have a safe and happy holiday season with your family as well, and we'll see you at the next Minnesota Quilters meeting.